why I still can't grow facial hair.
Well, welcome everybody. I don't have that problem, Adam. Welcome everybody to, and neither does our guest that you'll see in a minute. Welcome everybody to another exciting episode of the UnDisrupted Podcast. We're in the middle and near the end of season 8, Adam.
Wow.
I know, kind of crazy to think about. For the last 4 years now, we've been doing this show a couple times a year, a couple seasons a year. And I was thinking back and reflecting back to, podcasting didn't really exist when we were kids. And we always talk about we're preparing kids for jobs that don't exist, and people hear that and they kind of roll their eyes like, yeah, whatever, it's not really true. And I'm like, well, I mean, podcasting didn't exist. But I'm curious, Adam, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
When little Adam was running around deciding what little Adam wanted to become one day, honestly, the one that stuck the longest, believe it or not, I wanted to be an FBI agent.
What?
Yeah, for several years, I actually wanted to join the Federal Bureau of Investigations. That was actually something I looked at and thought about. And I don't know, now at 45, I have no idea what the heck I was thinking about wanting to be an FBI agent. No disrespect to anybody in the FBI, great branch, do you people. But can you imagine me with a badge and a gun running around? Yeah.
Only if
it'd be like X-Files.
Only if I could be your partner and we could do like a cop show of some sort. Yeah, that would be awesome. Oh yeah, you'd be made for TV.
So what about you? What was a young hooker trying to be?
Well, the young hooker was thinking lots of things in life. I wanted to be a professional breakdancer, but there wasn't that in the Olympics at the time. Now I feel like maybe now I might have a shot, but I'm not going to go into that. No, I wanted to be I think architect from the time I was 8 years old through most of college, until I switched to education. It was like, I wanted to be an architect. I was the George Costanza of my time. I'm like, I just wanted, and to this day, I still, by the way, want to be an architect. So maybe at some point when I grow up, I'll become one. But,
that's why you like Lego so much.
I do. Building blocks. I had all those things. We used to have these little skyscraper sets that were not Lego blocks, but you could put them together and put like little plastic windows on it and build. I just loved all that stuff. And then something happened in my college career where I just changed. Like, you know what? It's too much engineering. I wanted the drawing. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But our guest has an unusual position that didn't exist even 6 months ago. Matthew Winters is the AI specialist, or as I like to call him, the AI czar of the Utah State Board of Education. He does not call himself that, folks, by the way. That is me.
Does he get a hat? Do you get a little hat if you're a czar? Like, you see like a little hat with a czar, like a beret or something. I don't know.
I do have a Viking helmet over here. That's not even a joke.
Yeah.
So that would go over well. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Long story, but I'll tell you what I purchased today on Amazon, and it'll help illustrate how much I still love this. I purchased the Walter Donovan action figure from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade today, the guy who dies by drinking out of the wrong chalice. And I wanted to be Indiana Jones when I was from age 5 until 16. And I did actual archaeology digs in my free time for a while. So I learned what that was like. And then I went, I want to be a teacher. And so it just kind of naturally jumped from there to teaching. And so
also Indiana Jones, a professor. So see, you became one.
I may already have Professor Indiana Jones action figure somewhere in my house. So yeah.
Did you ever watch the short-lived series Young Indiana Jones?
Yes. Oh yeah. And my nerd card on that one is I think I have a complete set of the action, the cards, the trading cards from that series. So if you didn't think I was nerdy enough already, there you go.
Check there. Just gets a little check marks here. He's got the action figers. He's got, although behind him is an amazing record collection that is not virtual for those of you watching. Those of you who are listening, you just have to take my word on that. But there he is. They're real. They exist. So tell us, what exactly does an AI specialist do? Because again, this job didn't exist when you and I met. A couple years back, we were talking about some of the things you were already doing with the state, at USET. And then this job comes around and it's created. What is it? You get to build the job on your own. Did AI create the job? Tell us the truth.
No, AI did. I think AI helped with the job. I mean, we're seeing this roll out. Where it came from was the great leadership we have here in the state of Utah. We have a great state superintendent, a great superintendency, a great board, and they all saw the need for someone to oversee what's happening not just in our schools, but across the board in education with artificial intelligence. And so they said, let's have a position. And I was talking to a few people in the community that wasn't really thinking about applying. And then they said, we hope we get somebody good in the position. And I went, well, maybe I could help out with that. And so I jumped in, applied, and they asked me to come join them. So I've been doing the job for just over 60 days, which is kind of bonkers.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, what a lot of the job is a couple of things. Number one is we're gearing up for policy, trying to help our districts and our schools develop, good policy surrounding artificial intelligence, but then also, statewide policies and things like that. We have a great AI framework here in the state of Utah. We're one of 20 states across the country that has a framework that's at the state level, which is incredible. And then just coordinating efforts across the state. We're doing a series of public-facing AI summits in September to bring together our communities, educator communities, to talk about what this means and do some empathy interviews and see what kind of things that we can work with.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So with that being said, how much AI do you use day to day? Like in your daily life, how much AI are you actually using?
I love that question, Adam. That's a loaded question, though.
Yes, it is.
And this is something that I definitely always point out to educators and people who are kind of new to the idea of artificial intelligence. Is I always think in terms of this phrase: if you're not thinking about using AI, AI is going to use you. And when we talk about AI across our work-life balance, we're using it in shopping on Amazon. We're using it to do things for algorithmic thinking on like video platforms. We're doing all sorts of things on social media with in the background. I was talking to somebody a couple days ago, and they said the goal of good AI integration in any company at any level is to make it completely invisible. And I thought that was a really powerful statement. So we're using, like, in terms of like direct AI usage, because I think there's a lot of indirect and like in the background AI usage, but in terms of like direct AI usage, oh yeah, I'm using it every day to speed up processes, writing emails, comparing things. I've been using it a lot lately to show transformative methodologies for doing like rubric versus like, here's something that's been submitted, and giving objective feedback and helping my thought process to be a little bit more objective. Because as educators or as humans, we tend to be a little bit more subjective with things like that. And so beyond that, I love using it creatively. And so things like I use a lot of AI to clean up audio and do podcast editing, video editing, and those sorts of things. So I think there's this whole swath of like ways to use AI, or that AI is being used, that we just need to first off acknowledge, but then also build off of and see where it can take us in education. There's some really cool spaces.
Yeah, it's always about, I think, that nice balance. Yesterday, totally name dropping what I was doing yesterday. I was at the White House with the Department of Ed. We were doing this summit on digital equity, inclusion, and emerging technology. But I'll say this: when we had some breakouts, we were coming up with some ideas on problem solving. And no, we weren't allowed to use any technology when we were doing this. This was all like out of brain ideas. And I have to say this, it was refreshing, because it had been so long I had been in a group of people brainstorming without using technology to come up with ideas. Now, once we did that, we could use technology to refine it. But it was just that moment where we're like, oh, wow, this is refreshing to have someone come up with an idea out of their own mind, and then somebody add to it, kind of tear it apart. And I'm like, okay, yes. And then we took it and use the AI component to kind of refine it a little bit. So to me, that was really refreshing, because I know there's a group of people who shy away from AI completely.
Yeah, that human part of it. There's a group I'm working with right now called the Human Intelligence Movement, and it's someone they're champions of AI, but they're also big believers in like the balance of it. And one of the things that I came across my virtual desk a couple days ago is this there's been a lot of posts in the last week or two about what they call the never AIers. They're like the movement. It's like, we're not going to have it. We're never going to do it. We shouldn't use it. And it's going to be the end of humanity. And I feel like, as with any innovation, this seems to happen in cycles. We've seen it in the past. And I'm sure not 100% of all of Utah parents are on board and educators are on board with using AI. So how do you, again, and this may be a kind of nuance because your role is still fairly, you said 60 days in. So how are you anticipating kind of managing that when it comes across? Because in the next year, you'll get some pushback. You'll get a lot of that, I'm sure, if you haven't already.
Well, and speaking for myself, I've had these kind of conversations even before I was in this position about what does AI mean for us as a society, and it's something that I struggle with. I've been reading a lot of not the people in education, but the people who are actually building the AIs and have been building the AI kind of structure for the last 40, 50 years, Ray Kurzweil and people that. And what I've really enjoyed about that process is that the discussion is around the exponential curve. And so when we talk about an exponential curve, where it's going to grow quickly and it's going to go up, and usage is going to get better, more and more useful, but also more and more integrated in what we do. And so I always think about when we talk about artificial intelligence, again, it's going to be something that is so integrated into so many facets of our lives, if it hasn't already been integrated. And it's one of those things. I was talking to a group of teachers a couple of days ago, and I said, this is like Google in 2008. That impetus point of like, we went from you're searching for something online to you're Googling something. And AI is getting to that point where you're going to start hearing people, I'm AIing something. I'm waiting for somebody to turn that into a verb.
AI, you're right. It doesn't sound, something's off there, but you're right. It's close. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's that ubiquity is when I think about people who are having those fear points and those problems with artificial intelligence, one of the things that always comes across my thought process is this is something that is we just can't ignore. And we have to figure out what are the best ways to build in the structures, if we're an engineer in the AI space, structures into it that protect us and work with us and help us to build those things out. And that's a huge conversation that's happening inside the AI ecosystem right now that I'm paying deep attention to. But then on the flip side, for us as like kind of users and general users, especially in education, we have to remember that the human component of artificial intelligence is so important. Like what you just said, Adam, is like, I love those kind of conversations where we can step back from technology and just have a conversation. But then there's also something where we can take that conversation and synthesize it and do some really kind of extension activities with the technology as well. And so we have to never forget that AI is a human system. The human is the important part in that. And how do we keep that human system helpful for us instead of letting it run? And so there's some really interesting conversations in that space right now that I've been tracking. And I'm excited to see where this goes and how quickly it goes. That exponential curve factor is absolutely fascinating. And there's some that think we're going to get to general intelligence in the next couple of years, which is kind of crazy. So
that's wild.
Watch out, John Connor.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the thing with AI is we're fellow geeks on this call right now, and nerds to some degree. So we've all seen and read about, AI being things in the Star Trek, like computer, do this and do that. So we've always wanted this thing to be here and to do things, and it's happening so fast. So as this is happening so fast and things are changing, what do you see as the biggest challenge in schools with this AI? Because it's coming so fast especially generative AI into the classroom. It's happening so fast. What do you see as like the biggest challenge that schools are going to be facing as they are trying to figure this out?
Yeah. By the way, I love that you went to Star Trek for the AI example instead of going HAL 5000. There's that weird
That's
which one are you going to go with? Because there's so many
Star Trek
AI,
but there's also though. Isn't that where Scotty comes back and tries to talk to the computer? Yeah. I remember that. Sorry,
I try to keep it nice and bright.
Totally geek now. Sorry.
It's all good. I got to go back to, I think, Adam, that's such a poignant question. And I think it's such an important thing. And there's so many different ways that we could take that question. But really what I've been going to in my thought process as I've been working with educators for the last couple of years on AI and kind of thinking through watching even professionals using artificial intelligence is that it's that shift of mindset around what we use it for. So like, I think again about like Google 2008, I remember being in college. I was in college from like 2008 to 2006 to 2009.
You're so young.
I'm so young. Yeah, I know. I don't feel like it. The beard is betraying
We're
me.
matching. We got the matching right here. Yeah, that's good.
Exactly. I'm starting to get a gray patch.
As I rub my baby face over here.
I remember, because that was around the time when we started seeing that shift of like, you're no longer paying as much attention to a textbook, but you're starting to use things like Google, Wikipedia. Like I remember the first time I heard Wikipedia was in a classroom, and a professor was like, you cannot use this. It is an inaccurate source. There's problems with it. And that narrative has shifted to some degree about how Wikipedia can be used in education. But that shift took, I feel like we're still dealing with like the end tail of that shift from like, here's a textbook to we have the internet and there's so many things that we can do with the internet and we can search it through. AI is a natural progression of that conversation. But as I've been working with people across the country and across the state, one of my favorite things that happens is they're like, I wonder, they say this out loud, I wonder if AI can do this, this, or this. And as they're talking, I'll just type in the prompt to an AI and it will tell me right then and there whether or not it can do that action. And I think that shift of I wonder to I can, and then also utilizing it in a daily practice and understanding the underlying technology to some degree, to understand where it's pulling that information from. All of those are important shifts. I've been talking a lot with educators about developing a futures mindset, like remembering that this is a technology that's growing and changing rapidly. So if it doesn't do the thing that you want it to do right now, it will probably in 6 weeks. And that's an important thing to keep in mind as we move forward with the technology, that it's moving rapidly and we might see shifts. And so I think it's not a question for me about implementation. It's not a question about how we're using it. Particularly, it's that mindset question. How do we shift the mindset, just like we did in the late aughts from textbook to internet to now we're using AI to do some really interesting things.
I'm just so reminded of that. That you remember that video that circulated? This is probably, mid 2000s. That shift happens.
Yes,
when it would
do all those
an
update.
things.
Yeah, and it was like social media could be the third largest country right now, or something like Facebook. I do remember that. Yeah, those are with that little clever. It was a Moby song, I think, was the background of it. Right here, right now. Right now. Yeah. Back to our DJ conversation we had before.
That's all we can say right now before we have to start paying royalties.
Pay the royalties. We started this conversation talking about jobs and what we wanted to be when we grew up and jobs that don't exist. I'm curious, Matt. I mean, I haven't asked AI this yet. I probably should, because I'm curious what it would say. What jobs do you think? Now, it's hard to really, this is the thing, is like I could say 10, 20 years from now, but in my mind, I'm like, God, can we even go 5 years out and try to predict at this point? But what do you see AI's effect on the future of work being? Because I know like the World Economic Forum puts out their list every couple of years, and AI is like number 7 out of the top 10 skills. So what do you see that impact being? Because I think that's central to your current role too, is not only preparing kids, but also getting ready for that future work.
Absolutely. The world of work post high school, whether you go to college or you're going to a trade school or just going straight into an industry, such an important question, especially with AI. And I would say, like, I'm right there with you, Carl. I don't know what we can do 5, 10, 15 years. I hesitate even for a year, because if we look back a year ago, there was a large conversation happening in educational technology around prompt driven writing and how important that was. And I think that's still important, but I don't think it's as important as we thought it would be looking back. I think that's gotten simpler to do over time and more accessible. And so what I'm thinking about right now is, how do we think about artificial intelligence without getting bogged down by the current fire, that's happening in front of us? And how do we move past that to, okay, what does this conversation mean in a year? What does it mean in 2 years? What are the likelihoods of this happening? And with that in mind, what are the structures we can start gearing towards to build that through? And so, there's 2 threads that I really kind of grab onto for jobs in terms of preparation. And one side is, we got to start thinking about who are the next generation of like Ray Kurzweils, like who's the next, how do we prepare the next generation of engineers, writers, all of that kind of side of the spectrum. But on the flip side, how do we prepare not just our students and our learners, but our teachers, our parents, for that next layer of digital citizenship, of AI literacy, and having that be part of their understanding going forward into wherever this takes us. And I think that's a much more important shift to kind of think about than this is the kind of job that we'll see in 10 years, or this is the kind of job we'll see in 5 years. These are the skills, dispositions, and ideas that really kind of focus what we're doing. And one of the things that we see here wonderfully in Utah is we have Utah's Portrait of a Graduate, which is just an amazing document. Portrait of a Graduate across the country, those are just fantastic documents that lead a lot of conversations about what education could look like. And our document here in Utah, it has those skills and dispositions that really help us, no matter where AI takes us, helps the students to be prepared for that kind of eventuality and those kind of conversations. And I think that's so important for us to remember, is that yes, AI is a huge technology, and it's going to be monumentally shifting. It already is, but there are skills and things that go into it that we can already tap into that are in our school systems that can prepare students for that next thing. I just think back again to when I was in high school and in college, I kept hearing that same thing of we don't know what job you'll have down the line. Your job may never not exist. And honestly, the job that I had even before this job didn't exist when I was in high school. It came out very shortly after that. And so we have to think about, it was the same thing then. How do we prepare kids for no matter what happens, and then get them ready for that?
I did ask ChatGPT just out of curiosity. This is funny because Matt, this is the perfect, by the way, moment where we are in time with AI. Matt's answer talked about kind of all of the things that go into play with what we're doing and where we're headed, and all the humanistic qualities. And of course, AI spits out a list, which it generally does, right? It's here's a list of here's some ideas, And it's funny because number 5 on their list is something called the AI enhanced educator, which is the name of the podcast that the three of us are going to do next, right? Yeah, it may already be out there. Someone may be using that. Honestly,
I'm building that in my lab right now as we speak.
Yes, and it just says as AI
laboratory,
as AI tools become more integral to education, educators skilled in integrating AI into their teaching methods will be needed. These professionals will design and implement AI enhanced curricula that adapt to students' learning styles. Sounds an awful lot like what Matt's job is going to be here in the next several years.
Well, and things like tapping into that, existing structures in education, things like personalized learning, adopting, mindsets for shifting cultures and shifting ideas, collaboration and communication, all of those things help to build out the next generation of what's going to happen. And those are more, I think, focusing on those kind of tangible things that we can do rather than hoping that skill set will lead to this job and we can point towards it. I think that's really valuable.
And Adam, there's a weird one I got to tell you because I want to see what your reaction is to this one, Adam. There's the last one on the list says an AI-powered human enhancement specialist. I don't know exactly. Oh, it says AI-driven prosthetics, wearables, and brain-machine interfaces. Wow. I mean, I said 10 years out.
Yeah.
Well,
but you remember that thing we saw at ISTE several years ago?
Oh yeah, the brain
wearable.
Yeah, you put it on your head, and Adam was controlling like a computer with his brain. It was really cool.
Well, Ray Kurzweil, I mean, going back to him, I bring him up a couple times. He's thinking general intelligence in 1 to 2 years. That's where AI is training AI. He's talking singularity where we merge with AI
a lot faster than we thought.
Yeah. And so, I mean, these things are coming faster than we think. And that's a question that I have about, personally, is what happens when that information is 100% democratized. Everyone has access.
Yeah.
What does that change the education system to? And so it's an interesting question.
Carl and I, we had a nice conversation about that at I think FETC 2 years ago. And it was around when some of the Elon Musk of the world were saying, hey, slow down on this AI, slow down. And part of it was, are they really being genuine in this slow down, or are they getting upset because now the common man has access to stuff that they normally didn't have access to with AI? So they're like, hold on a second, how can we start monetizing this? How can we stop these people from getting out from where they are? And for the record, I believe he is a James Bond villain behind the scenes. So this is, I'm on record of saying this from season 1. So, we can roll that footage, but I've said it. So
it's true.
Insert clip of that clip right now.
But let me ask you this though, with Now, just a history lesson here. We had the .com boom bust that happened. I think you were probably like in middle school when that happened, maybe.
Yeah.
But we're seeing that similar thing happen right now with AI, where everybody's putting AI in everything. I think I went to the grocery store and got some peanut butter, and it had it with AI now. So
now made with AI. I don't know how they do it, but they put the AI in it.
It's in there. So how would you suggest school districts go about vetting these various AI tools when they're here today and they may be gone tomorrow, but they just slapped AI on it?
Yeah. There's a couple things that I've definitely been, using as kind of guiding lights for myself on that. One is there's so much AI out there, and every company is trying to, like you said, integrate it in there. I'm going to be laughing about the peanut butter thing for a while. That's great.
Yeah.
AI enhanced peanuts. Anyways, although I did listen to a great podcast from MIT a couple weeks ago about John Deere and how they use AI to map out their processes. It's fantastic. Anyways, we have it in so many tools already, and there's more tools that are coming out that have AI in them, and that they're going to be using that for free or giving it out in some way, shape, or form. There's so many tools that we already have in districts that are vetted, that they're in use, that teachers are used to, that will have or currently have an AI component. And so that's where I've kind of directed my thought process, but also some leaders' thought processes. If you're going to get inroads with your teachers about artificial intelligence and ways to use it, use existing tool sets that they know and are kind of in love with already in their classroom, and then build from that standpoint. Because that's going to give you way easier inroads, but also they're familiar for the teachers, and they're going to have familiar interfaces that work them through just in a slightly different way. And that way you can bypass the where to click issue, which is a lot of professional development, and focus on mindsets. How do we actually use this? What is this useful for in your particular classroom? Those sorts of things. The other side of it is, again, you probably, as a district across the country, districts across Utah, they already have established data privacy routines for vetting systems. And so one thing that I've been telling educators for many years is I had an issue when I was in the classroom where I thought my IT department was just blocking my innovation. I know a lot of teachers have thought that process of you're not letting me use the tool I want to use. Then I started talking to a lot of IT professionals in education, and I realized how difficult their job is and how many things they have to go through to make sure that we're safe in the classroom.
Lose him?
Did you lose me?
I'm not hearing him.
He froze.
Did I freeze?
That's the first time this has happened.
I know.
Hello?
Matt, are you there?
Uh-oh, you guys froze for me.
He was starting to make fun of the tech people and the tech directors for saying no, and then the tech god said no, and they striked him down. Oh, he's out. Oh, we'll see if it captured his video. We'll have to see what happened there.
Oh no!
Yeah, right in the middle.
Larry King, caller, are you there?
By the way, I did ask ChatGPT, could Elon Musk be a James Bond villain? And it just said, certainly,
hey, Carl,
Elon has some qualities that could fit an archetype of a James Bond villain. Number 1,
Adam,
tech billionaire. Number 2, visionary projects. Number 3, unconventional personality. Number 4, global influence. Number 5, futuristic aspirations. And then, of course, it is, however, while it's fun to imagine, in reality, he's really just someone trying to help. I'm like, oh, ChatGPT, quit being so nice.
I see Matt's typing us a message right now.
Okay.
I'm telling you, that's so funny. That has to make the show. That has to make the show.
Yeah, I don't know how we get that in the show, but that's right after you said it, I was like, oh, let me just type it and see what happens. Yeah, we could leave this. We could our editors. You might have to leave this bit in when he leaves and comes back. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
No idea what happened, guys. I apologize.
You're right in the middle of dissing on there's the tech people and they don't, and the truth is, and then it went.
The tech gods heard me and destroyed.
They did. I know. That's what I was saying. They just punished you.
Apologize, guys. That was weird. Never had that happen with my. I actually have
we've never had that happen on this.
That's our first time. Yeah, we've had pretty good luck with this interface, but I think it's the combination of us making fun of Elon, you saying something about the tech gods. I mean, I think we put all of those eggs in that basket. It's coming to thump us on the head.
Yeah. Do you want me to start from the top on that one?
Yeah. So back on that,
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, and we'll say right where you're talking about vetting the AI tools.
Cool.
Yep. All right. 3, 2, 1.
So on the one of the things that I learned very quickly in the classroom, I felt very. I'm going to start over.
Yeah. Go for it.
One thing that I learned very quickly when I got out of my classroom and I started working with IT directors was that their job is really difficult. And they try to keep very close eyes on what we're doing in the classroom so that we can be safe. And so when we talk about artificial intelligence tools and teachers wanting to be innovative with those, I always say, use the established data privacy practices. Make sure you check with your IT department before you use it. I think more than ever, our data could be used against us and could be absorbed in a way that we don't necessarily want it to be used. And so one thing I've kind of jokingly put out there, but I've always said I wish I could embroider on a pillow and give it to every teacher in the state, is if you are using an AI program for free, you're paying with your data. And if you're paying for it, you're probably paying with your money and your data. And I think that's such an important thing for educators to understand, is that the way the data is used, it has to be very carefully vetted in our states and our districts and our schools before our students are really safe. Otherwise, that opens up all sorts of problems. And we see those every single day. And so that's the kind of the two things that I would walk away from with that.
Yeah, I do think it, I've heard other tech leaders talk about those OEMs, the big players that have been on the block for a long time that aren't going to go away right away, like Microsoft and Adobe and Canva, who are, of course, snatching up and using AI tools left and right. There's something to be said also about stability, right, of those companies and what they're doing with data privacy, as you mentioned, Matt. So I think that's a good point. We always end the show.
Yeah, hold on. Before we end the show, Carl.
No.
We were talking about my good friend Elon.
Oh, okay, yeah. So when we had a little bit of a tech glitch, listeners out there, you may or may not have heard it, depending on when you're listening to this. But when Matt had to leave for a second, I went ahead and searched on ChatGPT. Could Elon Musk be a James Bond villain? Do you want to know what ChatGPT said? And by the way, ChatGPT, and this is 4.0, I'm paying for the full thing. It says, certainly he could have some archetype of a James Bond villain, such as 1, tech billionaire, 2, visionary projects, 3, unconventional personality, 4, global influence, and 5, futuristic aspirations. And then it ends up saying, so while that idea is fun, he's really just a visionary entrepreneur who's really trying to help people, not hell-bent on global domination.
That's what he wants you to think.
ChatGPT's on his side now. No. Sooner or later, Elon's people are going to contact you, Matt, or Adam. I'm just going to say that. And when the space lasers come from the drones or whatever, I just know that I said nice things, Elon. Not really.
I would be interested in putting that prompt into multiple AIs. Let's just put it that way.
Ooh, yeah. I like that idea.
Put it in Gronk. I wonder what his own AI says about it.
Ooh, I like the idea of an AI bake-off, Matt. I do like that could be a fun session too, of like saying, let's look at, I've been doing that with AI image generators, but not so much with large language models. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
See, that's why we have an AI specialist on the show, folks, so we can learn new things, and he's paid the bills. But as we always wrap up with our show, we always ask Matt, every one of our guests, and now you're so into the world of AI and all the digital stuff that you're doing, and I also know that you write poetry, as we saw on the stage at Denver as well. So lots of different things. How do you keep yourself undisrupted in this world of ever changing everything?
That is a wonderful question. I read a lot. That helps me a lot. I try to read at least a book a week, if not more, just so I can really think about not just what's happening in education, but improve my worldview. Because one of my favorite people in the world, and it's a musician, Henry Rollins from Black Flag. He talks about in one of his stand-up specials about travel kicks the ignorance out of your body, and I use that as kind of a start, a sentence starter. Reading helps kick the ignorance out of my body. And I love reading. I love learning about the world. And so that's helped me keep a handle on what's important in my job and what's happening in education, of the people and the students and the learners, of what's happening. And so that's part of it. On the other side of it, really spending time and maximizing that time when I have space to sit down with teachers or with administrators and districts and learning from them, because I'm in a position where I love being able to just sit and listen and know what the issues that they're facing are, so that I can better maximize what I do in my job and work that through. And so I think those are the two things that really keep me, undisrupted as I go forward in the work that I do.
And that's why I think you're the perfect person for that kind of role. Again, that's such a big thing. I think sometimes people that get put in these state roles sometimes go and they say, we're going to push out edicts on things that we need to do, but you also need to be in that receiving mode. So I've always appreciated that about you, Matt, and also the fact that you have a very eclectic background, that every time I talk to you, there's something new that pops up. Henry Rollins also played a bit part in a lot of movies, but a really good movie, Heat, which I just watched the other day, 1995. Remember that? He played a little bit part in that.
He did.
But thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. And for listeners out there, be sure to subscribe and do all those fun things that we like to see so much. Give us a review. We might even give you a shout out on a future show. This has been the UnDisrupted Podcast, brought to you by All for Ed. He's Adam, and you can follow him at AskAdam3 as long as Elon keeps his account active.
For now. And he's Carl. You can follow him at Mr. Hooker. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we are better together.
And we are better undisrupted.